G'day, how you doing? Adam Williams here from Easy Way Photography. Now in the last video I mentioned that I have a free introductory Photoshop course, and you'll find a link to that course in the description of this video as well. It's a very short course designed at getting you started and comfortable with the basics of Photoshop. Now what I want to demonstrate in this short video is how we can use the basics that we learn throughout that introductory course to transform any ordinary images into something absolutely beautiful with a whole bunch of impact. So let's get in and get started. So just to be clear, everything that I demonstrate throughout this short video, you will learn in that short free introductory course. Let's jump in. So as you can see here, we have an image, pretty ordinary starting point, bit dark, bit dull, not much going on. We're going to try and transform this into something that's exploding with light, vibrance and energy using only the basics, okay? So let's get started. First of all, what we're going to do is press Command or Control J, duplicate that background layer, and we're going to do a color correction. Up to the image menu here, Adjustments, Match Color, click that Neutralize button there and click OK, and you can see within a fraction of a second, within a couple of seconds there, we've managed to color correct this image, no fuss at all. You can see quite blue there, much more color correct there. Now actually, just relax and follow along, because I'm going to run through this in a fairly real-time manner, the way I would normally edit an image. But rest assured, when you sign up for that course, all of these steps are very deliberate, very slow, and very easy to follow, okay? So don't worry about trying to follow along with this particular tutorial here, because it's going to be going a little bit too fast, potentially. Okay, now let's just straighten that horizon up quickly. Click on the crop tool, click on the little builder's level icon there, or the straighten word, either, and then just click and drag out across that horizon, keeping that nice and parallel. Let go, and you can see that straightens up beautifully. Click OK. Beautiful. Now we're going to apply an auto curve. So we come down here to our little adjustment layers icon, the black and white cookie here. Click on curves and then click the auto button, which is going to automatically adjust our exposure level or our brightness and our contrast level. Okay, you can see that's done a pretty good job there already. But if I hold down Option or Alt, click on that auto button again, we get a few more options here, and we can just click through and see which one suits our taste. Now, that top one and the bottom one there seem to be the best. I like the brighter version, the top one there. Let's go with that. Click OK. And you can see with those two very simple layers there, we've gone from that point to that point, a huge improvement in maybe 20-30 seconds of real time. Let's move along. Now in the next stage here, we're going to make our photograph as interesting and as exciting as possible. And the way we're going to do that is to make the most interesting area of this photograph stand out as much as we can. So in this particular image, what do you think the most interesting area is? I think probably this section that contains the edge of the reef here, the rock shelf, and the rocks and the start of the water there. That would be the most interesting. The second most interesting area is probably this beautiful pink sky here. Okay, so they're the areas we're going to focus on. They're the areas we're going to make stand out. Now, if you don't have a big, bold, obvious subject like a group of rocks here, then just choose the most interesting area of your image to apply this theory. Now, the theory we're going to use is called, I like to call it reveal and conceal. Now, we're going to reveal and make more obvious the most interesting element, which is these rocks here. And the way we do that is to add more light, add more color, add more contrast, and then we're going to conceal the not so interesting areas by removing light, removing contrast, removing color potentially, okay? So we'll end up adding light, color and contrast to the rocks in the middle here, maybe a little to the sky, and then darkening down and maybe desaturating the edges a little bit. And that's going to give this image incredible impact. And keep in mind, we're only using the most basic tools here. Let's do that. Let's add some light to these rocks in the middle here. So move down, click on our adjustment layer icon there, select curves. Curves does all of our lightening, darkening and contrast, and we'll step that out throughout the course. For lightening and darkening, one point in the middle, And we move sort of in an upwards left direction for lightening the image up and a downwards direction for darkening, okay? So I want to add a little bit of light to that subject area because light makes more interesting. So we just move up a little bit like that. Now, I'm not going to delve too much into layers and masks because there's an entire video on that in the free course. But essentially what we're going to do is apply the adjustment, then press Command or Control I and keep your eye on this mask here. It will turn black. There we go there. And we can no longer see the adjustment, but it's still there. Okay, you can see the adjustment up here that we made, but the black is kind of concealing that adjustment. However, if we go B for brush or click our brush icon on the left here, making sure our brush is in white and our opacity maybe about 40 or 50% and our flow at about 50% roughly, what we can do with the white brush is just bring that adjustment back into that very specific area where we want it, which is just through the middle here to our subject, trying to make that more obvious. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, let's darken down the edges a little bit, which will have a similar effect in really highlighting our subject because we're going to be concealing or darkening the not so important edges of this image, or applying a vignette if you like, which is just a fancy word for darkening the edges down. So we've added a curves layer, one point in the middle, drag down, Command or Control I to invert. I'll just make that a little smaller to give myself some brush room. Might just lower my opacity down a little to help with applying this effect. Just dab that in softly with a nice soft brush there. Look at that. We can probably, you can see that that's had a beautiful effect. Can you see how the subject, we've only applied a few layers, but look how the subject is now really starting to become very obvious, and that's what we're looking for. I'm going to do another curves layer and darken down a little bit more. Just like that. Command or Control I, turn that to black. That looks absolutely beautiful. Let's zoom in a little bit, and what I want to do is apply some light directly onto these rocks. So again, curves, one point in the middle, lift up. Beautiful. Command or Control I, turn that mask black. Once again, in the course we step this out very slowly and deliberately, and it's very easy to follow. Okay, can you see how we've just applied a little bit more light to those rocks themselves? Absolutely beautiful. Let's go and add some contrast. Now, normally what we'll do is we apply the brightness and the contrast first before we do any color adjustments, because in Photoshop, applying brightness and applying contrast will affect the color a little bit. So if we adjust the color initially, we're only going to probably have to come back and do it again. So contrast, we use a curves layer again. So we've just added a curves layer. This time we place 2 points. One just down the bottom here, one up the top. The bottom one gets pulled down a little like so. Top one goes up a little bit. Something like that. Once again, Command or Control I to invert that to black. We will paint that in. Now, contrast is very, very attractive. As I said before, adding more contrast to your interesting areas will make them much more interesting. So we'll mainly add that to the rocks here and to the beautiful pink sky, which will make them more attractive. Look at that. Contrast boost, before, after, looking absolutely gorgeous. We might just lift that, adjust that a fraction. Okay. Now, what we might do is just tweak the color a little bit now, okay? Now, there's a few little blue fringes. Up in this corner's got a little bit of a blue tint. Down here's got a little bit too much of that same blue. So we'll add a hue saturation layer. And if I just click this little hand icon up the top left here and click on the problem area right there and lower that saturation down, Can you see before, after? Before, after. Absolutely beautiful. Click on that mask, Command or Control I to invert to black, and once again we will just paint out those problem areas. So that blue patch there is now gone. A little bit too much blue right there. That looks beautiful. Let's add just a little bit more light, okay? So curves layer, just through the middle here, Command or Control I, and mainly on my rocks here. I just want them to stand out. Okay, now one more adjustment. We're going to add a little bit of a color wash, which is going to give us incredible mood and add to the drama of this image. So come back down to our little adjustment layers icon, the black and white cookie, select solid color. Now often you want to choose like an orangish color, they tend to work best. However, I'm loving purple at the moment. Who doesn't love purple, right? So select that purple, somewhere in between red and blue there, click in the middle here, click OK. Now you can see we have a solid purple layer there. What we need to do is change the blend mode from normal here, up next to where it says opacity, to soft light. Okay, and because that initial adjustment was a bit of a guess, what we need to do is double click that little purple square icon there. And I think our guess is pretty good, to tell you the truth. And we just want to find something that suits us. I like that there. Ooh. I think that will do. Click OK. Click on the layer mask there, Command or Control I to invert. I'll just make that a little smaller. And what we're going to do is, I love this purple color in the sky mostly. So I'm going to brush across the sky and bring most of that through. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do is lower my opacity around 30% there and just wash across the foreground a little bit. And that's all there really is to it. Let's take a look at where we've come from. Before, pretty ordinary, and I think destined to be deleted. And then after, absolutely gorgeous. A lot more drama, a lot more exciting, a lot more interesting than it was before. Before, after. Now, if you'd like to get started and learn Photoshop and transform your images from even the most ordinary starting point like this to something absolutely gorgeous like this, take a look in the description of this particular video. There's a link to the free introductory course. Click on that, sign up, and in no time you'll have the skills to transform your images from anything even as bad as this up until something absolutely gorgeous like this. And keep in mind, your really good images, you'll be able to take them to the highest level possible as well. Thanks again for watching along. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.